Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we're going to be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have The Lodger, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. We have Bronson by Nicholas Winding Refn. We have newly released Atlas by Brad Peyton. And once again, newly released in theaters, In a Violent Nature, directed by Chris Nash. So we have a quite an eclectic group of films this week, folks. Buckle in, get ready. It's going to be a great show, and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing over there?
Thomas, how's it going?
It's going okay. On this side of the table, how was your week of movies?
Not too exciting. Nothing exciting. Folks, it was kind of a slap-together week, even with my intended fifth missing slot. The fifth slot was supposed to go to Young Woman in the Sea with Daisy Ridley. But
that's right.
The closest theater was over 50 miles away, so my joke for this week is not the English Channel crossing of movies. I'm not crossing the English Channel.
So it just didn't have that big of a release?
I don't know.
Very limited?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting good reviews, too. Kind of was interesting to see what Daisy Ridley would do post-Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, she was in maybe like one or two things.
Yeah,
but
I don't think it
this
looked
is like
that
a
good.
big leading thing. I don't know. What were you going to say?
I don't think it looked all that great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, just your average Oscar bait biopic. But yeah, even with it in, I don't think the week would be any better. So,
Right.
I mean, maybe better slightly by the average of scores, but it certainly would be yet another outlier in a five outliers. So
Yeah, we're spanning almost 100 years here.
Right.
From The Lodger to In a Violent Nature.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't aware of. I mean, it was quite a, as far as new films go, real who's who of maybe negative, maybe poor films, should you say?
Yeah. Poor receptions.
I watched Atlas, by the way.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll get into that then.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that.
But, yes, this is a day late, folks, too, so sorry for the delay. That's my bad on that one. But other than that, any opening
under
notes?
The weather.
Yeah.
What's the Friends joke? Sexy phlegm voice or whatever. What is that one?
I don't know.
No, I don't. I've never even watched Friends.
I should be the guy that knows, but no, I don't know. Any other opening notes?
No, we can get right into it.
No, nothing? Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was expecting to buckle in.
I was expecting something. Okay, well, we're jumping back to 1927. We're going to finish out our Alfred Hitchcock May. We kind of dipped into June a little bit.
Sure.
But he went all the way back to one of his earliest films called The Lodger.
Yep.
And this is a silent film, correct? Mm-hmm. So break the film down and why this one? And how'd you like it?
Well, I definitely liked this movie. It's hard sometimes with silent films, both in the sense of like my own personal enjoyment, and then it's like, how am I really making a case for, practically, anyone else watching this, especially if they're not into diving into the film in any sort of way. With our last slot for Hitchcock month, I wanted to go back to one of his earliest films he created, now that we spent some time in his later career. Exploring these films from the master of suspense has been eye-opening in a lot of ways, mostly in appreciating how Hitchcock toys with the structure in his story, in his characters, and always gives a different approach to how to build the mystery. But what happens when you strip all that down to a silent film? That's where I was kind of coming from with this week on this last slot. In addition to The Lodger being almost 100 years old, it's an entry early enough in his career to be a part of his silent film era, in which he actually made about 9 movies. 9 movies.
He made 9?
Yeah. before he even hit sound. Crazy.
That is crazy. How old is he?
He died in 1980 on the dot.
I think he was born in 1899, is that right?
I think something like that, yeah.
Right,
also not a very healthy individual either. So him and Orson Welles just they kind of became gluttonous towards the end of their life.
Yeah, born in 1899.
Wow. Yep. Unreal. The good news here, though, for anyone that's been following along in the Hitchcock study, or this kind of strikes an interesting chord, this is still 100% his DNA, being a romance thriller that flirts close to danger like many of his all-time greats. The story revolves around a classic Jack the Ripper style setup. We open on the 7th killing in a murder spree perpetrated by who the tabloids are referring to as the Avenger. Don't worry, no relation to the MCU. Maybe that's a little tasteless, making an MCU joke from a movie in 1927, but it's what I wrote. Daisy, played by June Tripp, fits the fair-skinned type that matches the killer's MO, but a sweet home life and, more importantly, a cop boyfriend keeps her mind at ease. With a room for rent, a mysterious man comes to stay with her family, played by Ivor Novello, and suspiciously referred to only as the Lodger.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like
cool
that.
Name.
Absolutely. I didn't really make the comparison until reflecting on the film further, but this does kind of hit more on the romance side than I expected.
Okay.
And kind of the closest thing I have to compare it to was The Laughing Man, which was a romance silent film and a little grim in nature as well to compare it to. So I don't know. I think maybe that's a slight use case here or watch case if you if you want like a really done up violin string romance. But I mean, we barely covered a handful of silent films on the podcast, but whenever we do, I really have to dig deep on where the experience has value in watching it in modern day. Without a doubt, I think you find it in the title card and caption work here, all of which was done by Edward McKnight Coffer, an early graphic designer gaining fame in the 1910s with his poster work. Little bit of a rabbit hole on this one that I went down because I was like, was this guy really famous? Like, how popular would you really get from poster
As
work?
A poster card guy?
Yeah. It's like, I guess I don't know. Infinite boredom is a power back then, but here the title cards are much more than just simple text on screen.
Okay.
Yes, we get plenty of normal dialogue cards. It's a silent film, so that's going to be the main, heavy lifter there. But in addition are stylized character chapters with like these Art Deco flourishes. There's a lot of information relayed through newspaper headlines, kind of tying into the theme of the London and the British people being morbidly obsessed with this killer. Mm-hmm. And even a stock ticker style public display that is done, from what I can tell, in animation rather than be an actual like kind of public display ticker that I don't know if even would exist at that time. Next to the visuals on screen, this method in silent films for dialogue cards is really the only way we get storytelling in a lot of ways. And part of why I wanted to cover this was to see what Hitchcock did to craft that mystery without dialogue. I mean, the most important piece there. The story...
Especially because Hitchcock, his scripts are massive.
Yeah.
Pages and pages and pages.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Of dialogue.
Absolutely. And we even saw with, Dial M for Murder or even Man Who Knew Too Much, a lot of information is just such an important piece to the experience.
Yeah.
What we know, what we don't know, and what characters know both ways as well. That story has a pretty interesting quality around the public's fascination with the killings, and I guess my best guess, without going down like a full history lesson on Jack the Ripper, was like maybe this matched like a real morbid curiosity that gripped the UK, that it actually really like made them almost not bad people, but they wanted the dirt. They wanted the if it bleeds, it leads kind of headlines.
I think that's right there. I think it, Yes, one, it was a big story at the time just because of how many murders there were, but
Right.
but also it is that thing of it's the talk of the town. That's what everyone's talking about, and that was the I don't know, that was the viral moment at the time.
Absolutely. The closest thing I can come up with, if it bleeds, it leads, but that's clearly like a 70s news type of, or 70s, 80s type of news.
But it hits. I mean,
yeah. So I think that's where the story has some edge to it. And although our setting does confine us with the most suspicious character, the lodger, the suspense and tension comes pretty damn close, resembling one of Hitchcock's best films, the must-watch from 1960, Psycho. I mean, hell, there's even a bathroom scene in this that is, it doesn't have the same payoff, but it's still kind of this like tense bathroom scene.
There's a lot of beats of it still,
yeah.
which is very Hitchcock.
Absolutely.
To reuse or redo his stuff.
yeah. Maybe that's his trademark. He's a hack. No. Actually, I think although the tone of the film is much softer than anything we've watched so far this month, I really did, like I said, like the romance between Daisy and the lodger. It felt almost Tim Burton-ish in a good way. Where there's this grim playfulness, because almost dead to rights. This lodger, I mean, he's really suspicious. So her kind of falling in love with him and him being this like quiet character once again reminded me of The Laughing Man more than just the silent film aspect. So
how was the actual film put together? When we watched Battleship Potemkin, we were watching the roughest of rough cuts and edits.
It's almost like a school film.
I mean, the graininess of the film.
Yeah.
What was the quality of the film itself? By the way, hour and a half, hour and 32 minutes, that's really long to me.
Oh, for a silent film.
I mean, yeah.
I guess so.
For 1927, that to me is like pulling teeth.
Yeah, true. I guess so. That's why I was like, I don't know if you have to watch this one this week. Because I really, not many people are going to be able to sit down and watch the silent film. I think the filmmaking, oddly enough, I'd clock it a tiny bit above Dial M for Murder, in the sense that Dial M for Murder really felt like a play. Here, you have similar studio vibes, but interesting things are done. There's a great shot, for instance, that the lodger paces a lot, adding to his suspicious, his suspicious element. And there are many shots that the camera pans up, and we actually see what I imagine is like a glass or plexiglass floor, and we see him walking through, like if to simulate the actual, without sound. What is going on in the scene. So we see that the characters are drawn by this constant pacing above them. Little filmmaking like that, I feel like this held up pretty well.
I mean, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And the quality of film itself, back in British 1927, held up enough where it wasn't torturous to sit there for an hour and a half.
Absolutely. And if anything, going back to the work we did this month to study some of Hitchcock, I think the rear projection screen stuff that we've seen in his films in the 50s ages a lot worse than any aspect here in silent film included. So I think there's a fine line there. Obviously, it's very old, like older than most things we've ever covered on the podcast. But I definitely was not bored to tears, and if anything, saw a lot of what Hitchcock was about.
And then as far as what was did it have normal looking frame rate, or were characters moving quicker than normal?
Like a Buster Keaton or something like that.
Or going back to Battleship Potemkin. We're definitely dealing with a lower frame rate.
I think one or two scenes just around like the mob mentality.
Okay.
When people, out in the streets and, nervous, but also excited, morbidly excited by finding the killer. A couple sped up scenes, but,
Nothing major. For the most part, it was pretty fluid.
Exactly.
Excellent.
And go back to George Miller,
Right. It doesn't matter.
People love that sped up footage as bad as it looks. It's as crappy and amateur as it looks, but I guess it's still being used. I'll say I have some slight gripes with the backing music, which was made for the film in 1999 for a restoration of it, but honestly, it's not a rabbit hole I will feel like going down yet. I think my general thought here is being to keep the original version of the movie as pure as possible, but in silent films, that's pretty much impossible when it comes to the live backing track that was often played with it. So I'm going to have to kind of marinate on that, though. I just know I did not like the 1999 music here. It felt very Spielberg. Didn't feel Hitchcock at all.
But isn't it just what the original music was, just remastered?
I don't think so.
You think they just did their own music?
I think so. In the spirit of the film, and obviously, if this was signed off on by Hitchcock's estate or whatever, that's fine. I'm not getting into the do they, don't they. Obviously, this film needed to be restored from 1927 in some way.
It just would have been nice if they had that same backing, because usually it comes with an entire. It comes with the musical notes. It comes with the set list, essentially, when you do it live. It's not like every different orchestra that's being played
absolutely
is doing their own thing.
Even if that was done on like a player piano, that it does it itself. Again, something I'm just going to have to do some more research into, and probably just consume more silent films, which I don't know will be. It's not really a priority.
Slowly.
Yeah. We'll digest that over 10 years.
Most of all, something was a little off.
Yes. Yeah. My gut feeling was not liking the music, and if anything, almost constantly wondering, man, I just kind of,
Right, yep.
And if anything, again, what we always preach here, judging it in modern day. So, everything else, though, I think really held up otherwise. The biggest hurdle for your own watch being the fact that the movie was made in goddamn 1927. Which is a big hurdle, for anyone. So keep in mind where I'm coming from. If you've been enjoying unpacking how the mystery is told in these stories, if you dig any of the movies or any of Hitchcock movies that we've covered so far, I felt this was a pretty interesting watch. Good, not great, but a solid example of an older movie surprising me by how true it felt to its creator's style. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give The Lodger, 1927, a 64.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, 64 is a pretty good score.
I thought it was pretty decent.
Wow, okay, folks.
Yeah.
I know we got new listeners at all. 64 for the daily ratings. That's a good movie. That's a good movie right there.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I think it was definitely, again, there's a cutesy romance to it. It works. It really does. Again, in Hitchcock vibe, but also Tim Burton-y, just to make more recent comparisons.
Sure, but for it to hit that much.
Yeah.
Because you could give this a 41, but be very respectable 41.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Bowing down to
64%. It's almost like there's a decent amount of audience that it would be enriching enough to go back and watch.
I think so.
Them.
I think so.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And more importantly, this was definitely a silent film that did not bore me to tears, which I feel is an aspect I need to kind of be realistic with. Even if I'm like all about the film. For the recommendation here, I need to kind of, meet it in the middle.
Wow, okay. So, Alfred, we're locking down Alfred Hitchcock for the year.
He's done.
Ending with The Lodger, 1927. 64%. And then we'll be back the beginning of next May.
Yeah.
Beginning of next May, we'll be back with Alfie.
Absolutely, with Alfie.
Because there's so much more to hit with him. But I like taking a month to dedicate each year.
Yeah.
And kind of plugging away with him.
Yeah, it was just too much to plan a special around and have to watch these movies to give them a fair shake, and then I don't cover them or some way, so... that's why I like doing it over the month.
I love it. Okay. Well, let's just jump ahead basically 80 years to 2008. This film is called Bronson. It's rated R, starring Tom Hardy. Again, an hour and 32 minutes, just as long as what The Lodger was.
Boy, yeah. Talk about a different experience.
So this one, I think you had brought this up last week.
Yeah.
You're kind of in the mood to watch Bronson because you're in the mood to watch Tom Hardy speak a little bit at least after doing the Mad Maxes last week.
So true, yeah.
So you're in a Bronson mood. Take us into the film a little bit. I saw this once a while ago when it came out, and what I came out of it with is... I freaking love Tom Hardy now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. This is one of those hook movies.
It was a statement piece for him saying, like, I've arrived.
Yeah.
But why don't you take us through the story a little bit? What is this little film, Bronson, and how'd you like it?
Well, let me start with saying I love this movie.
Okay.
I really do love this movie. This was a pure pleasure watch. And
was it rated already, by the way?
Yes, previously rated.
Okay.
Also agree with it as well. I think, I wanted to start covering films like this more where I get to knock out audio on something that's previously rated.
Yeah,
also
yeah.
easier in the workflow for putting it up on the site, but also just enjoyment in a dull week. The idea to cover this started with craving more Tom Hardy, and I think it's a good case to show as well how a movie is rated moderately on the site and it's still a great movie by our rating system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In no way did I watch this movie and was tempted to move the score up and down at all. And I can even still say, like, I love this movie.
Yeah.
So I feel like a good case example there. Out of our director's film catalog, Nicholas Winding Refn has a lot of sleeper hits, but this is probably neck and neck tied for my favorite alongside 2016's The Neon Demon. I know the love affair is all around the movie Drive with America's favorite Ryan Gosling. But for me, Refn's hyper-violence works best with more comedic tones like this film or more horror tones like in Neon Demon. But let me sell you on this movie right here, folks, especially if you've never seen it, you don't know about it. Bronson is an insane ride that feels nothing like Refn's later films, and is downright wild compared to mostly any other film as well. I mean, this is a crazy, crazy movie. It's been a minute since I threw out a good doubleheader recommendation, but this fits snugly besides the internet cult classic American Psycho, both benefiting from watching them straight for their experience, for lack of a better word, but also enjoying the insanity on screen with a nervous laughter.
That's what it is. It's
maybe in a group setting as well.
An experience of watching an insane person.
Yeah.
Going down that road with that singular person.
Absolutely. And both, though not like labeled as comedies, I think this and American Psycho are like unintentionally funny.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, or maybe intentionally as well. I mean, there's a lot of funny moments in this movie that will probably erode at any comedies I review in the future. But Bronson is a truly insane biopic for one of the most insane prisoners to ever live, wrapped up in a absurdist, violent, dark comedy. I would describe it personally. Michael Peterson was originally a man sentenced to 7 years in prison in the UK for petty robbery. He went into the system a man and came out a monster named Charlie Bronson, grabbed from Charlie Bronson of Death Wish fame. Either by a deep psychosis or slack-minded delusion, Charlie has spent his entire life in prison, extended his own 7-year original sentence by constantly brawling, fighting, and clawing his way out of the British prison system. The film attempts to tell his insane story, matching the psyche of a man that would rather fight than leave prison, and creatively takes what we know of the real legend and makes for one of the most iconic roles Tom Hardy has ever filled.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie is kind of forgotten among Tom Hardy films, especially with projects like Legend, where he's playing two brothers at the same time. Yeah.
Tom Hardy works more than you think.
Oh, yeah.
When you go down his filmography, it's like, holy shit, he was in a lot.
Yeah.
But we love him in this.
Absolutely.
Because it's hit or miss with him sometimes.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, even Dark Knight Rises with Bane, I feel like that has gone full 180 to being a so bad it's good performance.
No,
in ways,
I disagree with that. I think Bane, you can cut him slack.
Sure, okay.
I think Venom.
Oh, of course. How did I forget? The Venom 3 trailer just dropped. Yeah, of course.
Now we're in dangerous territory.
Yeah.
But the guy has done a surprising amount in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
But it's a shame that this one gets kind of, because it is a smaller film.
Yes.
It has I just looked at a budget of $230,000. $230,000.
It's also like way before any fame was given to Refn, and he's already kind of like a cult classic or indie type of director already.
I think after Drive, for sure, which was 2011?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as far as the main guy, the real guy that was in prison, it's based on a true story.
Yeah.
Most of it, at least.
Yeah.
He's not the most well-known guy either.
Yeah, true. I guess if you know the
I mean?
UK, you don't know Charlie Bronson that way. You may know Charlie Bronson as the actor, but
Right, and that's as far as that goes.
Yeah, but yeah, really insane, and is a biopic ultimately because so much is pulled. There's a lot of internal segments which I'll describe in a second, but Real footage is taken from his prison riots when he gets into his artistic phase, we'll call it. Real drawings are used as animation in the movie. So, I mean, not that anyone was asking for this biopic, but it's a pretty good one. So if you like that, this is a watch on that level as well. I would say, and I think it goes to stand like you remember this movie clearly, even only watching it once. It's that much of an impact.
Yeah, and I think I watched some other scenes multiple times, but as far as like sitting down and just letting it run through, I think only once. But there's some classic scenes.
Yeah,
and you think about it fondly in a comedic way almost.
Absolutely,
because he is such an outrageous character.
He's so
intense.
He's so intense. I mean, in so many ways, I wish this movie is what was ripped off for Joker instead of Taxi Driver. It's a point for the birds because Joker's been made. They're making the second one into a jukebox musical, so to speak.
Yep.
But just imagine Arkham Asylum is the prison. Joker is driven more and more insane by the system that is keeping him there. It would be great. That is. I mean, again, a point for the birds. No one's asking for another Joker. We're neck deep in that, but. I just feel like, man, I always watch this movie and I was just like, man, it'd be great if this was done.
He would be a great villain.
Batman.
He would be a great Batman villain.
Absolutely.
However, not really because he's just in prison the entire time and gets himself further into prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll save that when I can actually get paid for movie pitches, movie elevator pitches. Tom Hardy, though, the real meat here, flat out fantastic in this. It is a wonderful manic performance that clearly defines the beats of the film as comedic, even with there being some serious gore and violence. There's some rough spots in this, which is definitely in line with our director. There are these internal segments where the narration of Charlie's life is done by Tom Hardy, and calling these segments insane or unhinged comes nowhere close to how crazy they are. I mean, he's doing face paint, he's doing multiple characters on stage. There's like this imaginary crowd that's either booing or applauding for him. It's just like, wow, this is a psychopath. And just so enjoyable for that reason. It's just like a really, campy, cheesy, fun way. It probably doesn't help my case for reviewing other comedies, but I really do think this movie is hysterical, and I laugh at it constantly at just how much everyone is a weirdo in this. Just like, whether it be like British people just like so hokey and so like backwoods, or Bronson himself just like not picking up on any social cue at all,
right?
And usually thinking that's like an offensive jab at him that it starts in a fight. But it really, it's just all over this film. I'm laughing at this. It's got one of my favorite dance scenes when he's locked up in the mental facility. That might be just worth a YouTube alone if you if you don't have much of an interest in this film. And just so many of Hardy's lines are just instantly quotable. Like, I want my hotel room back. And just the sheer amount of times he throws out the C word, like, will make you want to be British. Like, and just like, if that's okay over there, then I want to be British. So I would say, besides the love affair, the soundtrack is a highlight for me. I don't know really what you would call this era of British pop music, but it's some of my favorite. New Order, Pet Shop Boys, all of it creates more than a time capsule back to this era of the UK. I think it just perfectly fits the character of Bronson and how he's almost like sedated at various points in the film. Not that the music necessarily lines up with that, but there's just something, I don't know. I've always liked this soundtrack in a way that I just feel like it matches a contrasting energy to what we're seeing visually on screen, but still like creates such an atmosphere and a mood of the UK at that time. You know what I mean?
I like that. And I think it helps. It helps just calm things down a little bit.
Yeah,
it's a nice little pill.
For sure, for sure. Absolutely. More than anything, folks, this movie I have always kept in my pocket. This is one that I have kept holstered. And like I said in the beginning, would like to start covering more of these movies because I was finding myself pretty bummed out this week of how crappy these new releases were. And Young Women in the Sea being over 50 miles away. So even just considering driving 50 miles for a movie I probably wasn't going to like wasn't great. So, I mean, I would like to cover these type of movies because I think it's a great time. I've always made a case for these movies. And even though it's rated on the site, it's good to get audio to that stuff. Bronson is a deep cut I can pull out for anyone that loves Tom Hardy. And I would say, more than anything, especially for a fun boys watch looking to laugh at some outrageous violence, we're going to go ahead and give Bronson 2008 a 77.
77, it's a great score.
Yep.
And I don't know, these little movies just hit so well.
Yeah.
Again, a budget of $230,000. That goes into... What was that list I tried to make one time?
Yeah.
It was like top 10 under $10 million.
Oh, yeah.
It was Layer Cake was in there, also featuring Tom Hardy.
Yep.
And then Whiplash. And then Bronson will put it there.
Yeah, we'll put it there, yeah. I think that's a crazy fact. I mean, I didn't know we were under $1 million,
it's less than I thought.
Under $500,000.
I know.
I mean, just the sheer amount of bodies thrown at the screen, whether it be guards or other inmates and whatnot. I mean, I feel like that. Wow, it's good extra work.
I know. It's very impressive. Yeah. And I'm thinking maybe we approach prison movies a little bit more.
Sure.
Because I have two in my mind right now that one I have seen that I think you would really like, and one that I really want to see that is like, it's so well reviewed,
sure,
or critically praised, and it's got my boy Ben Mendelsohn in it.
Oh, okay.
But I just think these small kind of
many boys,
these small time prison movies might be a good itch for us to scratch.
Absolutely, and I think that's also like where this is so unique in that Charlie Bronson, the real person, doesn't want to leave prison. He wants his hotel room back.
It's insane, man. He wants some of those scenes, and he's
endlessly. He wants to riot,
and he's Tom Hardy just gets it down so well with how intense of an individual he is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Gets it down so well. 77% says it all. It's a really good film.
Yeah.
Really good movie, Bronson. Check it out, especially if you're in a Tom Hardy mood, or if you're looking at some of the Tom Hardy's more recent stuff, and you're just like,
right, yeah, what's the hype?
Like, where did we
go back here?
Go back here. Exactly right. Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So before we go to our newly released, now in theaters films, I just want to take a moment to remind everybody that we are going off the value for value model. So Vin and I aren't going to be taking any advertising. We're not going to have paywalls on the site. No tier structures, nothing like that with Patreon where you have to pay a certain amount a month to get all different kinds of special access. The point is, Vin and I, we have the website going. We do the podcast every single week. If you're finding any of that valuable, are you using any of it? Then we say, can you give us back some value? So you go to thedailyratings.com, you go to the donations tab, and through your monetary support, you become an actual legit producer of the Daily Ratings, and you send whatever amount of value that you feel you're getting from us. So if you didn't buy a cup of coffee this week that you normally do, or if you just have, whatever, you cancel a subscription on something and you have some extra dough.
Maybe it's canceled on Netflix after not watching Atlas.
Yeah. The point is, everybody's finances is different, and that's why we don't peg a specific number to it. It's why we don't do Patreon, where you need to give a certain amount of money to get content. Vin and I, there's no special or more content here. We provide everything. Everything is just out there technically for free. So if you do find it valuable, that's why you ask, can you send us some value back? And it's whatever monetary support that you want. And through that, just like Hollywood, when you financially donate to a project, you become a producer of that thing. And that's how we do it here. So when you donate, you're an actual legit producer. And last week, our executive producer was Michael Romano. And we had thought he sent in a note, or maybe it was small. He ended up actually getting back to us, and he said, big fan of the pod. Love that you guys are providing quality content without making me sit through 20 minutes of ads for Athletic Greens and HelloFresh. He made a note here saying couldn't figure out how to add the producer note through PayPal. Whatever note that came through must have just been auto-generated. No worries. I'll get you on the next one. Consider it payback because I've been listening for months, and I check the site almost every time I go to the movies.
Whoa!
Which is awesome. So
that's fantastic.
We want to thank you from last week, Michael, but also use this as the opportunity to kind of say how our site works, basically.
Sure, yeah.
When you go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, you'll have our set amounts. So we do have some like buy Vin a movie ticket, Space Odyssey donation. We have those amounts. We also have the value for value button, which again, it's whatever amount of value you want.
Purely
whether
custom.
It's $5, $20, $525.25. I mean, it's literally what you want it to be. We also have our Venmo too on there.
Oh, yeah.
So you can link straight to Venmo because you can hit us up on Venmo as well. Mm-hmm. But when you go to donate to us, it brings up a PayPal window. And you don't need to have PayPal, but in that window, it'll ask you whether you want to use your credit card, debit card, or PayPal.
Yep.
There is a toggle or a button on there that says send a note along with it. Mm-hmm. That is what opens up your PayPal note. You only get 250 characters, so if you have a small note, that's just fine, and you can send it that way. Mm-hmm. But we always encourage people that when you become a producer, when you donate to the show, send us a note at tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. You can email us through that, tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. So email us there to get your producer note in, whether it's comments, questions, critiques of the show. This is the time in the podcast where we'll take a minute, read your note, and give you a thanks as well. If you're going to be a producer, that means a lot to us, and your words are important, whether it's an ask us anything, you want to ask us something, or you actually have critiques that you want to share. That's important to us. So, Michael, once again, thank you for the note, or thank you for the donation last week. Thank you for sending that note this week. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Okay, Finn, so let's keep things going. We're going to start with Atlas, yes?
Your call.
Okay.
Pick your poison.
How about since Atlas is on Netflix and the other one is in theaters, we'll start with the next Netflix release.
Absolutely. Let's get into the game.
It's
I'm surprised you watched this.
Bronson had a $230,000 budget, right?
Yeah.
Atlas, $100 million budget.
$100
million budget. Civil War that came out earlier this year,
yeah.
$50 million.
Oh my god. My god.
Jennifer Lopez in Atlas. It's an AI schlock film.
Yes, absolutely.
But why don't you kick it off? Tell us what Atlas is, and then we can both shit on it.
Sure. Yeah, it really is no good. Steer clear, folks. And listen, I really wasn't planning to cover this. This is technically old by a week, I believe, for new releases, but I needed something easy to punch down on this week. I needed...
Well, and Netflix is shoving it down our throats.
Yeah, true. Very true. But I've been feeling more writer's block than normal with my review process, and man, did I just need a movie I didn't have to call heads or tails on.
Sure.
You know, I just knew it was bad, and I was like, all right, let's talk about how bad this is. And something I knew in my bones, something that maybe would pull some views in a very dull week of new movies. Ben Affleck, divorce. And something that looked so low quality, it made me question if the usual Netflix fodder that we throw at them had dropped into something more dubious, like a Tubi original or something like that. I mean, $100 million budget. I didn't know that much.
$100 million budget.
Tubi ain't pumping out that.
Netflix is so dumb. Netflix, the head guy, Dan Lin.
Okay.
If it's not Dan Lin, I apologize to all Dan Lins out there. But whoever stepped in kind of recently, this guy who dropped Kathleen Bigelow.
Oh,
who dropped
right.
Other auteurs, they're moving away from auteurs.
Yeah.
And going towards
which
more...
you picked a bone with before. Yeah.
Because I forget the quote or the phrase he said as far as not family friendly, but of all audiences, something that all audience will like, or for the audience. I don't know. All that means is we're getting red notices, we're getting atlases, we're getting the Gray Man, these ridiculously expensive projects, and they're just pissing our money away. It's like, stop raising your rates and just don't make Atlas, please.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Sorry, I cut it.
No. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I really don't know why so much was put towards this project when it really, even I mean, even in the production of it, no way did they think this was going to be good. I mean, maybe J-Lo thought she was giving an Oscar performance here with all the crying. But yeah. In Atlas, Jenny from the Block plays Atlas. Not a soldier, but an analyst, something that she will scream at you at least a dozen times in the film. For a movie that is near endless exposition, the actual skin Atlas has in the game is left intentionally unclear. We are set in an idealistic future, somewhere between bland sci-fi futurism and kind of the growing trend of solar punk. Not really a term I love, but it's kind of what's been throwing around in the genre. Here to capitalize on the fears of your in-laws on Facebook, the AI systems we heavily rely on suddenly turn against us and war breaks out. Don't worry, I'll talk about the staggeringly one-note tech in a second.
Oh.
I think I'm going to go very out on the limb here and say this might benefit from being written by an AI because it's clearly written by like a committee of old men that don't know what technology
I don't
is.
know, man. I'm not sure about that. It's written by, oh my God. Yes, but you're right. AI would have helped.
Yeah. After a 28-year time jump, we find the lead AI mastermind, Harlan, played by Simu Liu, had left tracks for the government to hunt him down, but Atlas's history with the AI terrorists give her both a vendetta and an edge to be included in the mission, soldier or not. Like I said, J-Lo thinks, really, she believes she's giving an Oscar performance here. I can assure you she's not. I can assure you. She reluctantly has to pair with the technology she hates, as most of the runtime is either an excuse to put her in a CGI mech body or give the character a boomer tantrum grumbling over technology and how little she wants to use it. This CGI mech body, closest thing is it feels like a theme park in a lot of ways. Feels like one of those like prestige theme park rides where it's only like, 8 to 10 people and you're surrounded by screens and the seats move and whatnot. That's what this movie feels like, and kind of takes a whole new meaning of like, movies being theme parks, a la Scorsese's quote.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the mechs kind of reminded me half of what they use in Avatar.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That they just jump in and they use to be bigger and pick up stuff.
Yeah.
The Avatar thing, and then also that one clip of Jeff Bezos at one point on stage where he was in a mech.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I don't think I saw it.
It's basically just the same thing as
This
this.
is fantastic. Having a character confined to a cockpit is, I would say, maybe a smart production decision. This is before the $100 million budget.
Yeah, I thought it was a cheaper budget.
Yeah.
Because it's the most basic thing.
Exactly. Like,
Also,
pull on...
it's CGI.
Exactly.
That's where the money's going.
Exactly. They're
And J-Lo.
Yeah, so true. Maybe this confined cockpit design going for something like Gravity from 2013. But as a result, action sequences feel like, again, visuals playing around J-Lo in the front row seat of a theme park ride rather than being connected to the world or even fun in that regard. That, the wild ride she goes on in the confines of this one, mech seat. It's just like, it's so bland. It's just like,
Yeah.
There's nothing I found compelling as a hardcore sci-fi fan of what they were unpacking in this alien world, this world run by AI for 28 years. It's not like built up in any sort of way. It's just mindless jungle that they could probably do their best with pre-established assets in the CG budget.
Nothing is engaging.
Yeah.
Nothing at all is engaging in this thing.
Yeah.
Because the problem is what am I saying? Nothing is. Because J-Lo's not, the mech really isn't, and then everything outside the mech, which is all CGI.
Right.
It's bad enough where you're just like watching a computer game.
Yeah, exactly. And I kid you not, the backbone of the film are scenes of unwanted therapy bonding between J-Lo and her new mech robot consciousness. This creates a near constant scenes of her flipping out, crying, or generally having a panic attack as she screams about how much she hates technology and her not being a soldier about a movie in a mech robot in a AI war. It's just like, it's pulling teeth. This is pulling teeth.
It
I would
is,
watch
yeah.
70 more silent films rather than
I was
going
to say this compared to 65 with our boy Adam Driver.
I think 65 comes out better.
I think 65 might come out better.
That's an interesting matchup right there.
That says something.
Yeah.
It's a real will they, won't they, this film. Between her and Meksu.
Oh, sure.
It.
How deep is she going to let him in to her mind?
Exactly. Can he persuade her?
Sure.
Yep.
Can the boomer be won over by the Alexa in their home?
So bad. The writers are young guys, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. That's a real shame.
It's bad.
Yeah. The whole film is just severely, catastrophically cliche. I mean, I'm talking every single action sci-fi blockbuster writing technique is deployed here. I felt similar emotions to watching Michael Bay's Ambulance in that the script uses just so many cliches that I feel like it should almost be studied somehow. Like it's like, whoa, I mean, this is like some maximalism. Like how do you throw this much at an audience and it come out as what they thought was all right? In the first 20 minutes of this film, it is seriously a nonstop barrage of exposition disguising itself as an urgent start to the story. It really is a ruse. It is a trap. Thinking that this is like almost like a la Aliens or something like that, like a real quick start. No, it is to get you up to speed on this world and why J-Lo has panic attacks for the rest of the movie. And in no way did I expect anything insightful to come out of this story, even just watching seconds into it. But I'm not kidding when I say it gets worse and worse as it goes on. Did you feel the same?
Absolutely.
It's just like...
Yeah, it was a tough... I picked it up, dropped it after 20 minutes, picked it back up, I dropped it with like 20 minutes to go.
I'm surprised this wasn't a sleeper
and I went
on
back
you.
to I fell asleep. I fell asleep, dude. But I went back at it, and I really kept at this film.
Really?
And
wow.
it didn't reward you. It didn't reward me at all.
Your efforts were not rewarded. I think moving on to the technology, the story's understanding of technology just feels close to something like Hackers from '95 or Stealth with Jamie Foxx. You remember those movies?
I don't.
You don't
but
remember Stealth?
If that's generic trash, then yes, generic trash. AI, you're so right. AI would have written a better script than this.
Yeah, it would have pulled more intelligently. You know, I don't know. You know, where the comparison here to those two films, it's so blatantly apparent that just zero fucking thought went into these movies.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, like any story about AI, it's going to boil down to some similar beats. I get it. You know, if it's a humanoid body, it's going to lean towards like an Isaac Asimov story. You step further to like a blockbuster, you get something like iRobot with Will Smith.
Yep.
Still dealing with these
Eon's
concepts.
better than this, yep.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. But believe it or not, it really is Eon's better. Like, this is 2 steps further down from that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's bad. I seriously think this dips below even the wave of Chinese sci-fi movies that have been shoveled out onto streaming services in the last 5 years. I mean, I'm pretty sure I watched that Wandering Earth movie very drunk, and it was more coherent than this movie. So, and they tried to move the Earth with like jet rockets. Like that's out of Invader Zim. Like that's not a real concept. So, just exhausting. There's just nothing here for anyone.
No.
I think it's maybe it's fodder. It's what we always accuse Netflix of. That it's like turn it on and sure you watched it, but I feel like went to a
This is damaging. Almost.
Yeah,
like there's movies that you can turn on and just have it on the background.
Yeah,
and we're talking about these like TNT movies, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is bad.
Yeah.
It's actively annoying, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's anything there for you in the fun action bits because of the CGI.
Right.
Or the reliance on it. It's just so blatant. And then on top of that, you have like every scene, the payoff of it is Jennifer Lopez freaking out. And it's just like, it gets actually annoying at some point. Like, it's just like, I don't know, maybe like a single mom that has, a couple iPhone generations back, maybe this hits. Maybe this hits real hard. Someone's still reluctant to use Siri or Alexa or something like that.
But we're not even sure. She's not even like fighting for a kid or anything like that.
Right.
It's literally only about J-Lo and her story. That no one cares, and can she get a cup of coffee or not? I mean, the jokes in this are god-awful. The jokes are so bad.
Yep.
I think these writers thought that they were hot shit.
That's terrible. And honestly, even that little comment of like, give her a kid to care about, you should be in the writer's room, Tom. Right. Like, that's a pretty dynamite idea to pump this up a little bit. Don't make it so selfish. I feel like a lot of the problem with J-Lo's character, with Atlas, is that J-Lo is like a not an empathetic character.
No, she thinks she's the shit.
Yeah.
And that's the storyline.
Yeah, and she's got maybe some trauma around tech, but that's about it. Yeah. I have to come clean with a little internal check I have with sci-fi, and I call it, is this better than Avatar? Luckily, that's an easy case, easy pass in most cases, but this film was so clearly far worse that it had me kind of searching my anger for what it came close to, and it hit me. This is really close to Amazon's 2022 shit show that we covered on a very early episode of The Tomorrow War.
Wow.
Yeah,
The Tomorrow War has to be better than this. Okay.
I think they're neck and neck. I think both have unusual pull on celebrities involved.
Yeah.
We didn't mention it, but Sterling K. Brown from recent Oscar nomination is in this.
And Mark Strong.
Yeah. Just how Tomorrow War had like
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons out of
Chris
nowhere.
Pratt,
Yeah. Both are a shame that they are just such bad movies for the countless VFX artists and designers putting work into it, regardless of what they think of the project. And both are not even slightly worth your time. We're going to go ahead and give Atlas a 20 on the dot.
Ooh, 20. Yeah. It's almost a good score. 20% is almost a good score for this horrible film. Wow, but at 20%, that's low. That is low.
I think you have a genuine opportunity here to illustrate what is the lowest of Tommy Two Shoes. I mean, I feel like the lowest Tommy Two Shoes we've gotten in the past was maybe like Ocean's 13 or something like that.
No.
Okay.
No, Ocean's 8. You're thinking got 8. A flip-flop.
Right.
Something else got a flip-flop, too. I forget. Something recently got a flip-flop.
Oh, okay.
And then you have some things did get a zero shoe.
Okay.
In fact, 65 got a zero shoe. If you remember.
Yep.
But I didn't have one for this.
You okay?
Because it was so annoying.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's got zero shoes. I'm going to rate it. It's got zero shoes.
Excellent. We need to at least illustrate that we're in solidarity with this. We're on a team.
I'm glad you brought this up, by the way, too. As far as the shoes go, I started a spreadsheet and trying to explain, because we're going to have on the site. We hope to have the labels soon for them, or the tags of the shoes. So I kind of have to narrow down. Like, I was going through, I have one shoe and a smile. I have one shoe plus.
One shoe plus.
So there's these kind of things that I need to narrow down what it is, because a 0 to 5 star is technically 11 different sections.
Sure.
Because you
with
have
the different
half
laces
stars.
and
Well, I don't. So I don't have 11. I have like 8.
Okay.
And then I actually ended up pegging it to what a daily ratings percentage is.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to send that to you, and we'll workshop it, and then we can bring it up.
We'll workshop the shoes rating.
Because it's weird. I'll tell you, it makes so much sense in my head.
I want to keep it weird. I think that...
Oh, no worries. No worries. The difference between, there's some stuff that has like a 20% range, and then there's some stuff that has a 4% range.
Oh, excellent.
I
love that. Really
Regardless,
fine.
that'll be for later on. Folks, we are working on this site. We are trying to make So Bad It's Good sticker or tags and Tommy Two Shoes emblem. So basically, when you're on this site and you're just looking at the movies and everything like that.
Yeah, the poster itself.
The poster itself will have a little tag on it or a key on it. And that will tell you if it's So Bad It's Good, or the shoe rating will be on there, so you have a rough idea, at least what I thought about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so that's 20% for Atlas, 0 shoes. Well deserved. Absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going, though. This is a movie that's now in theaters. It is called In a Violent Nature. I'm going to go ahead and say it's a horror film.
What gave that?
It's only an hour and a half. It doesn't even have a rating on it.
Oh, really?
This is in theaters, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, very weird. So why don't you just tell us, what is this horror about, and how'd you like it? Does it deserve to exist?
Unfortunately, I'm kind of leaning towards not in the catalog of good horror that we've seen in the last couple of years. Certainly,
I didn't even hear about it.
Yeah,
not a thing.
Certainly not even holding a candle to a couple of the gems that we had this year. This was something that a few people sent to me, which is really always appreciated because I can't keep an eye on everything.
Sure.
Also, it is the second Shudder release to grab my attention for the year, after Late Night with the Devil was a pleasant surprise in a lot of ways. The hook for this film is all in the elevator pitch, and where I know the taste of Tom right across from me, this elevator pitch is going to lose him entirely. I feel like in this elevator pitch, it might grab the attention of hardcore horror fans or slasher fans specifically. It is a slasher horror, but from the perspective of the killer. And in that setup, you can do a few things. You can lean into satirizing the countless examples of the genre, which is slightly does in its nods to Camp Crystal Lake and Jason. But mostly the film plays out exactly what it's parodying. A true blue, genuine slasher in the year 2024 with little variation outside of the perspective swap to be over the killer's shoulder rather than the victims to be. I'd also be surprised if the hit game Dead by Daylight wasn't some sort of inspiration at work here, or at least a market opportunity recognized by the production team to release a film that plays out very close to it. I don't mean to overcompare to like a video game when clearly this is trying to be like a riff on Friday the 13th, but just how the camera is done over the shoulder felt very third person. The slow stalking of the character versus victims running faster, thinking, planning, trapping. Felt exactly like Dead by Daylight. I don't even play that game, but like very popular on streaming spaces. And once again, could be something that, if you enjoy that, this could be a hook there as well.
Okay, all right.
So, born from the ground and stomping forward as never-ending evil, the Jason-like killer Johnny is awoken by a trinket stolen from his gravesite. We unpack his cursed legend through the soon-to-be victims of the story, but do so only by never leaving Johnny's side. This means everything he sees, hears, harms, and kills is given to us close up and personal. And the camera hovering over his shoulder for the whole time. The film is very minimalist. There's no doubt about it. Some areas this shines, such as the environmental storytelling that happens in the backgrounds of scenes and the edges of the frame. Having Johnny hear about his own curse or kind of learning how stupid the plans of the campers are is an interesting angle. I think that the few areas I kind of enjoyed that film is that, wow, we're kind of learning about the legend or the horror or unpacking the monster, the rules of the monster through like hearsay almost, which was kind of interesting. But with the majority of scenes being just slow, stalking shots behind our killer, it may very well bore you to tears and too numb to pick up on these finer details sprinkled throughout the film. You might be just like numbed by the experience, that you're not lasered in a way that, I don't know, maybe watching like an indie film like this is, that you really want to be engaged with the film to pick up every little nugget, especially out like an A24 shop or something like that. Definitely what was coming to mind, very different films in their objectives, in their horror, but was coming somewhere closer to Skinamarink in its minimalism, in that a lot is not going on. A lot is just stalking and slow walking behind the killer, behind Johnny.
That small amount of film, though.
Yeah.
Really? Are you in nature? Where are we at? Do we know where we are? In like the States or something? Or?
No, I think it's just kind of generally a approximation of like a Camp Crystal Lake.
Okay.
It is
just backwoods.
Yeah, exactly. They have a park ranger, it's campers, and there's a lake. You know
okay,
what I mean?
all right.
And that it's a very Friday the 13th setup, intentionally so. Mm-hmm. Now, let me say this. Skinamarink has literally nothing going on in it.
Yeah.
This does have kills. We do see payoff of the slasher. We do see the slashing. So many scenes are just slowly walking, crunching leaves under his foots or his feet. And it's just, I understand that's the point of the film, to be like this slow kind of stalking, and maybe tension is built in that, in the right headspace.
Yeah, realistic, kind of just the real time of things,
right?
Type of deal.
But really, just boring in a way that numbs you. You're not. I was finding myself, really fighting to be engaged with this.
Wow. Okay.
Which kind of again goes to the theme of this week of kind of just not loving watching movies, reviewing movies. So I needed a bump after watching this. I needed a jolt. Once again, I think it's a double-edged sword. I feel like there is, as kind of predicted, a category. More importantly to the review, though, folks, I think the film fails to pay off in its premise. The first-person or over-the-shoulder slasher sounds pretty good on paper, only because of the promise of unflinching gore or meta-style kills. Frustratingly, out of the few edits we get in the film, most of them are cutting away from the violence. And it's like, what?
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. It takes forever to get to these scenes in the first place because we are literally walking with the monster. And then it takes, I would say, honestly, a good 40 minutes to get anything close on really delivering on this concept of like, wow, that was a kill. Like 40 minutes into this thing for that payoff.
Yeah.
That's it was not worth it. Not worth it. I think why this angered me actually watching it was that when we do get our gory kills, it's very creative and exactly what old slasher movies were about. Kind of just like creating these, these setups for payoff for the blood and gore, the squibs, all the VFX team to really just like do whatever they wanted. Our director Chris Nash comes from a special effects background, so kind of rooting for him there, and I think that's shown in a great way when the film delivers. But the entire experience becomes about waiting around for another execution kill. And maybe 1/3 of the time, we don't even get to see it. It's waiting around and be like, okay, we got one. What's the next one? And, oh, this one's an edit. Oh, or this one's maybe a little bit quicker of a kill, and we don't get the full payoff. I just feel like
it was asking a lot for you to be watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just wasn't getting you there.
And that's where it's like, this premise, kind of electric. I don't feel like it paid off on it.
Yeah, there is something to be said. It's cool that you're following the killer.
Yeah. It's a new type of... I'm sure like in the 80s, the endless schlock out there, there was probably a slasher done from the killer's perspective. But this one, never leaving that perspective, is interesting.
Yeah.
But just not something that paid off. I think this film has a small audience for it, and it really is for lovers, and I mean devout lovers of Friday the 13th specifically, which really drives home the market for Shudder that Shudder is around and designed for. In addition to those films being about gory payoffs, if you really enjoyed Jason as a character, as kind of an empathetic character in ways, this might have enough of a hook to make those slower moments compelling or at least hold more tension than I was kind of picking up. But for me, it just did not have enough of a switch up or something to separate it from the genre that has been done to death, and probably done to death like 30 years ago as well. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give In a Violent Nature a 45.
Ooh, 45%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What a weird week. What a weird week we've got here.
Yeah, it's a weird week.
Yeah, I mean...
So you think Young Women in the Sea would save this week or no?
Man, I just... the concept is cool, following the killer and kind of in real time, just watching him go around this park killing people. But yeah, it's 45%.
Yeah.
It's all these... Oh, man. If this was probably low budget, we were talking about budget so much, this had to be a small budget.
Sure, absolutely. And especially with Nash being in VFX already, he's probably working savvy to get some good gore on screen when it does show up. So,
and we should say that, with this being a Shudder film, the last time we came across this was just a few weeks ago. I saw the TV.
Oh, no. I saw the TV Glow, I think was A24.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the other Shudder one that we did?
Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's one I'm actually thinking about in my head.
Yeah.
Wow.
Similar vibe, TV.
Yeah, that's what I got confused. We didn't even cover I Saw the TV Glow, I don't think.
No, we did. We did. Yeah.
All these horrors can't keep them straight.
Well, paired at least in the sense that those two movies were not very good. So,
well, man, Vin, looking at these movies, is there anything else you want to comment on? Anything for in the coming weeks? Roll credits? What do you want?
I'll say one thing on the note of in a violent nature. This definitely cemented a special idea I've been cooking for a while.
Okay.
That I wanted to possibly grow into a larger series if this one's successful, but a franchise first. Where specifically watching only the first entry in a lot of long-running horror franchise first, basically doing 5 of some of the most notable horror franchises and only doing the first one. So the draft 5 list would be Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, and Saw. And only doing the first film from each of those franchises to see, maybe in a little bit of a trashy way, but like which one has the strongest start.
Right.
And watching this film was just like, yeah, I mean, how strong was the slasher or splatter films? Yeah, when they were just starting out. So we obviously had a really good experience with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, almost like against all odds. I didn't expect to like that movie that much. Yeah, just an idea that I think like has a lot of legs and good for a special slot come Halloween.
I think that that would work really well around Halloween. I think people would really love that.
Yeah.
Me, I don't know. I'm in it. It's educational for me.
And studying some horror. Not really spooked by it.
As far as coming up on the podcast, we've got the Bad Boys are coming out, right?
Yeah. Next week is Bad Boys Week. Probably just doing the 4. M. Night Shyamalan's Child has a movie called The Watchers. It's not getting good reviews, though.
Okay.
It's saying that it's right on brand for current M. Night Shyamalan, which is not a good start to Shyamalan's kid. So I'll see if I can catch that in theaters. Other than that, two Michael Bay films is enough, and I have to do 2 more. So.
All right, so we are coming all 4 Bad Boys next week. That should be a good time. I'm definitely going to watch some of them. All right, Vin, thank you so much for watching these films. Thanks for stopping by here tonight. Folks at home, we'll run it down one more time. We have The Lodger, wrapping up our Alfred Hitchcock with a 64%, Bronson with a 77%, Atlas with a 20% and 0 shoes, and finally In a Violent Nature with a 45%. So, folks, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating, or get the word out and tell a friend about us. And just a reminder, the Daily Ratings is completely producer-supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls, or tier structures, or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in any of the things that we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, and while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast.